Hello everyone, welcome to my Batman Arkham Origins. I am the Night difficulty, no damage walkthrough. We'll be going to the Gotham Merchants Bank, we'll be dealing with Mad Hatter, and we will also be dealing with Shiva. And Shiva, Jesus Christ. The amount of time it took me to do Shiva's boss fight without taking damage was a lot longer than you'd think. And it's just because I don't like the fight. I just think the way the fight is set up, the combat doesn't work very well. You're very limited in what you're allowed to do because of the specific enemy types that you're dealing with in Shiva's boss fight. And it's 2 phases to her boss fight. So she plays like a martial artist at the beginning, and then she has a bunch of assassins with their swords just attacking you. And then in the second phase, the roles are switched. She becomes an assassin, and then you're dealing with martial artists. And there were just a couple of moments where it was my fault, but then there were also some moments where the game betrayed me. And there were just moments where I used my backlaw, and the backlaw wouldn't detect on certain enemies. Also, there were just times where Batman would prioritize Shiva, and Shiva gets this property where she's unable to be stunned by the cape stun. And if you use the cape stun against Shiva, for some reason it kills your combo. So you have to build back up to X2, and then you're running the risk of the martial artists countering you out of the blue. You don't have the assassins dodging your attacks. I don't really like Shiva's boss fight. I don't feel like the developers fully comprehended the designs put in place with that boss fight, with the specific enemy types that you're dealing with. And because of that, I just feel like there are a couple of moments where it's like 70% the game's fault, but then 30% your fault. And I'll talk more about this when I get the chance, but I did save a lot of bloopers, or not really a lot of bloopers, like 4 bloopers, maybe 5 bloopers from Shiva's boss fight, but that was definitely the most annoying part to this recording. It was just Shiva. Everything else was fine. Although I will say, though, there were a couple of moments in Mad Hatter's encounter where the game was acting very strange, and also there were just some very strange designs with actually doing certain parts of Mad Hatter's encounter no damage. And it involves the electric floor, because there's one moment where after you do the encounter where you fight those guys and the mirror breaks, you then have another sequence where you have to use explosive gel on a wall. And the way they've placed the electric floors on the ground and the length that they cover, and then the time where they just switch in between each other, the game wants you to be so strict in how it wants you to approach that section, and it took me such a long time on my first recording to figure out what I was supposed to do. And it turns out you have to rely upon some very obscure sound tech, where at the end of the electric floor's life cycle, where it's going to swap to another electrified floor, you hear a sound, and when you hear that sound, that's when you're supposed to run for the wall, and then you're supposed to use your explosive gel on it. But figuring that out took so long to do, and it's just so odd and so out of the blue, because the previous parts of the Mad Hatter's encounter were not like that. So why they designed it to be this strict and this rigid and so obscure in what you're supposed to do to avoid taking damage. And you need to avoid taking damage because you will take a lot of damage from those electrified panels if you're busy just placing your explosive gel on the wall. Like, it was just so dumb. Oh, and look at this, by the way. This is a weird scripting error. So I pressed X on this button, but the elevator is not going up. I don't know why this is doing this, but eventually, after a certain amount of time, the game will give me the ability to press X again, and the elevator will actually go up. So I don't know why this happened. This is one of the many moments where this game demonstrates how buggy it is with its scripting. You know, the combat on this game definitely suffers from a lot of the problems and the lack of optimization. And it was such lack of optimization that I got with Mad Hatter's encounter, and also with Shiva's encounter. I didn't get any problems with the Gotham Merchants Bank, but I did mention in the first recording that I wasn't taking a lot of the Predator encounters seriously, so I wanted to try to experiment with dive bombing a lot for the Gotham Merchants Bank. And luckily for me, on the second recording, it went how I planned it, and I was able to deal with the rest of the enemies normally, and it was no problem. It was a fun encounter, but I can't wait to show you that. There's going to be a lot of trimming in this video, by the way, because I don't know if I have the stomach to do like a lengthy commentary this time around, because I'm not in the right mindset. But definitely goes to show how much of this time you spend just traversing the open world. And speaking of the open world, this game actually has a fast travel system. We were introduced to the fast travel system when we were going to Jezebel Plaza, but the fast travel system on this game is badly optimized. What it does is you see the bats just black out the screen, and then it goes to a scene where Batman fires his grapnel into the sky. He goes into the Batwing, and then he flies, and then you just see this one continuous shot of Batman just flying in the Batwing, and then eventually it goes to another scene, and then you're back in the open world, and you just fast traveled. It is badly optimized. The audio bugs out a lot. The cutscene that plays when Batman fires his grapnel into the air just freezes, starts, freezes, starts. Yeah, it feels like a loading screen pretty much. It really feels like a loading screen, but it does a very poor job at hiding it because of the fact that you're just seeing so much stuttering happening in this scene that is supposed to showcase Batman fast traveling by using the Batwing. And also, you have to unlock fast travel stations in Batman Arkham Origins. And the way you do this is by hacking into the GCR towers, because Enigma is using those GCR towers as network relays in order to keep track of his information that he's trying to get for himself. And it's interfering with your ability to use the Batwing, so Batman has to go to the GCR towers in order to unlock them using the cryptographic sequencer. But some of these GCR towers, you won't find any incentive to go for them, because what the game does is, on New Game Plus, you don't start out with every single gadget. You still have to earn your gadgets back again. And I don't know why it does this, because when the game is going to be rearranging the enemy placements, and they're going to be introducing new enemy types, and you want to get into the full potential of the combat immediately when you start New Game Plus, you can't do that because the game doesn't give you all your gadgets immediately. And the only reason I can think of is because they don't want you to go to certain areas way too early. That's the only thing I can think of. And because of the fact that Enigma says certain things, or certain characters say certain things that can feel like an anachronism taking place, where they're taking place at the wrong point in time. The developers probably wanted to avoid that, but that is a very poor explanation. Arkham City handled it a lot better. And there are just a lot of situations where these combat encounters would work so much better if you had access to certain gadgets earlier, but the game doesn't do that for some reason, and I don't understand why. And the thing with the fast travel is, certain fast travel locations, you have to have specific gadgets. Like, for instance, there's one that requires the glue grenade, and you know, like when you're going through Gotham so much, when you're just gliding through Gotham and you're not having to worry about the fast travel stations, it eventually becomes so ingrained into your head to just glide across the city rather than using the fast travel system. And when you're factoring in the stuttering issues involved with the fast travel and how slow it can be at times when it really shouldn't be, and also the possibility of an infinite loading screen, and then you also factor in New Game Plus and I Am the Night mode just not unlocking those fast travel stations at the start, there's really no incentive to go out of your way to unlock these fast travel stations or even use the fast travel system. Oh, and look at this, by the way. So this is supposed to be like a pre-scripted thing where Batman is supposed to be doing this very scripted animation of walking along these bars, right? Well, when you're trying to transition between planes, like when you're trying to go diagonally, Batman has a lot of trouble doing the correct animation for going diagonally, and so there are just so many times where he just falls. You don't take any fall damage, but this is happening so frequently in this part, and this is really the first time this has happened to me, and it was really becoming bothersome in that moment. And it's just a combination of the fixed camera angle and Batman's inability to go onto a bar that is perpendicular to him, and that's why that was happening. Oh, also, we have the Gotham Merchants Bank right here. This is one of the moments that I really appreciate about Batman Arkham Origins. I feel like there are darker moments in Batman Arkham Origins that are more subtle compared to Batman Arkham Asylum. Like, this right here literally feels like hell. Like, Batman has entered the mouth of hell right here, and hell is literally spitting him out right there. Hell spat him out right there when Joker detonated those explosives, and now hell has sent its servants to go and deal with Batman. It really feels like Batman entered hell when he was meeting the Joker for the first time, and I think that is a wonderful moment that feels reminiscent to anything you'd see in a horror game, for instance. Like, there are definitely some dark set pieces in Batman Arkham Origins that I feel are a little bit more dark compared to Batman Arkham Asylum, for instance, even though Batman Arkham Asylum did have a lot of dark moments. But I personally like the way a lot of these horror moments are implemented, or with the way certain imagery actually conveys a lot of intimidation. Like you get this in the Gotham Merchants Bank when you go to the drug lab and Copperhead is following you, or when you go to certain parts of the Gotham Royal Hotel, and even Blackgate Prison has its intimidating moments. That plus the soundtrack, and Warner Brothers is honestly the best when it comes to the soundtrack of the Batman Arkham series. And you have some pretty good pseudo-horror environments in Batman Arkham Origins, and this is something that I feel is very lacking in Batman Arkham City. Like, Batman Arkham City was a little too light on the tone compared to the darker tones of Batman Arkham Asylum, and to have that darker tone restored in Batman Arkham Origins, I feel is one of the things I can like about Batman Arkham Origins more so than Batman Arkham City. Because it embraces set pieces that don't exactly fall in line with being an action-adventure game. You know, these kind of like darker toned horror moments really feel like something out of place in an action-adventure game, and for Batman Arkham Origins to do that rather than Batman Arkham City, I really feel like it's one of the core elements to the Batman mythos and fantasy, and this game does that really well. And right here, we have the Predator encounter in the Gotham Merchants Bank, so you saw me use the smoke pellet, and I was just using nothing but ledge takedowns, and the only reason that was able to work is because I have the upgrade where the smoke pellets last a lot longer. And now that I mentioned the upgrades, can I just say that the upgrade system in Batman Arkham Origins is dumb, because it doesn't work off the same system as Batman Arkham City's upgrade system. So when you're using the upgrade system in Batman Arkham City, it wasn't a tier-based system. You didn't have to unlock previous skills to get other skills. I mean, sometimes you had to, but it was not a design that made up the core foundation to Batman Arkham City's upgrades. You did not have to, say for instance, purchase health upgrades in order to gain access to the multi-ground takedown. I mean, with certain abilities that built off of one another, that made sense. Like, for instance, with the freeze grenade. Like, when you purchased an upgrade for the freeze grenade, it unlocked another upgrade for the freeze grenade, because obviously that upgrade wouldn't exist if you didn't purchase the previous upgrade. Obviously, it makes sense for it to build off of it like that. But, you know, when you're talking about, like, the special combo multi-ground takedown and the fact that you don't have to purchase health upgrades, that makes a lot of sense. Well, there are certain abilities, or rather, this is what the foundation to Batman Arkham Origins upgrade system is. You have to purchase a bunch of irrelevant upgrades to gain access to the upgrades you want. And it just adds a lot of padding to the upgrade system in Batman Arkham Origins, and it makes going through New Game a slog. Not only that, but there are also certain upgrades that are tied to challenges. Like, you have to do very specific actions in order to gain access to certain abilities. And what makes this even more stupid is that you have to do the challenge it presents to you. You can't do the later challenges to unlock those abilities quickly. You have to specifically go with the steps the game is making you do. Like, the game's going to present you with one challenge, you have to do that challenge, even if it's a very simple one. Like, you can't just immediately do, like, the harder challenges and gain access to the skills that way. You have to follow the progression, and it's so dumb. It's just padding. It's just a way to waste your time on New Game, and it's great that you don't have to deal with that on New Game Plus, but I'm guessing that's why they did it. It's so your time in New Game Plus feels a lot more tolerable than your time on New Game, and that will then encourage people to play on New Game Plus rather than sticking to New Game. But that is a really dumb incentive. I really hate that. And it doesn't help that certain basic fundamental abilities that reward skill are locked behind later abilities. Like, for instance, the ability to do critical strikes. Do you know how long it takes before you're able to get to critical strikes? Like, you have to purchase so many upgrades before it allows you to get critical strikes. Yet, critical strikes represent the fundamental foundation to the combat, which is meant to make this game not a button masher. It's meant to reward skillful timing under strikes in order to increase your combo significantly. Like, why would you hide such an ability that complements the idea of skill behind so many meaningless upgrades, so many irrelevant upgrades? Like, do you really want to make the player think that you're playing a button masher so much? It's stupid. That right there doesn't make any sense at all, and I don't know why they did this. But it's almost like they felt people would be so disenfranchised with this game that they had to favor a very feeble route to get people to play their game by making the upgrade system as such. But that right there just screams lack of self-confidence, and it's dumb. And also, we have Shiva's boss fight, so I cannot begin to tell you guys how many times I restarted this encounter. It must have taken me at least 45 minutes to do this encounter without taking damage because the game was fucking me. And also right here, I'm doing the back claw slam, but the game will not trigger the second phase until I press square and I just do the normal strike. So I've dealt with those enemies, but you just gotta be careful of the assassins. Like, they get more range than they should. There's no telling what attack they'll do. You get those moments where you accidentally prioritize Shiva and she kills your combo. She gets range as well, and you don't know what these martial artists are going to do as well. You don't know if they're going to do the single attack or the attack that requires you to press triangle 2 times to counter them. This is why I resort to just using the multi-ground takedown in order to eliminate the martial arts, so that I remove a lot of the random variables from this fight, but it doesn't work very well a lot of the times, and that's why I spend at least 45 minutes trying to get this no damage. And see right there, like, there are a couple of moments where I'm using the back claw to try to grab the martial arts because they're the only enemies I can grab, but I prioritize a Shiva and I lose my combo. And there are also moments where I use the back claw on the martial artist. Like, right there, you see that? It connected with him, but it didn't trigger the animation of pulling him. Why? And I think it's because of the way Batman's stance is. Like, he's firing over his arm, like sideways, compared to just facing the enemy directly and then firing, and that's probably why it's not working. And because he's in this animation, it prevents him from doing the pull animation effectively on these enemies, and that's why, like, it's stuff like that that I was fighting in this fight, and that's why I don't consider this to be a good fight. I think it's a really stupid fight. I think it's a badly optimized fight with some polish that was needed. But we're close to defeating Shiva, but I can't tell you the amount of times I came close to finishing off Shiva, and she just managed to get a cheap hit on me. And she keeps dodging my back claw, but she's the only enemy left, so this is going to be simple now. I'm just going to keep jumping over her to make her stumble, and that will actually work. And I can just do this as well. But after a couple of hits, it'll go to this moment, and that will be the end of this video. And there are a couple of bloopers here that just showcase the problems I had with Shiva. Right there, my cape didn't stun her because it somehow missed. And then right there, I tried to do the takedown, but Shiva manages to catch me, and Batman didn't even do the takedown for whatever reason. That's her blocking my cape stun, which is bullshit. And then this right here, that assassin somehow damaged me before she even did the attack. And then right there, Shiva managed to get a cheap hit on me before she even connected with me. It was like a split second of connection, and that was all it took for her to damage me. Yeah, what a dumb fight. It's definitely one of the most frustrating fights in the entire game, and I just wanted to be done with this fight after 45 minutes. But that's the end of this video. Stay tuned for the future parts. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.